a huge struggle. They were, these people were imprisoning Christians and persecuting them and everything else. And women, especially female priestesses, were becoming a significant problem. And that's why it was decreed that there's no dominion that that was what was going on. And Timothy, who was the bishop there, he was having a huge struggle. They were, these people were imprisoning Christians and persecuting them and everything else. And women, especially female priestesses, were becoming a significant problem. And that's why it was decreed that there's no dominion that women are to have over men in the church. And that decree came down, and it followed, by the way, from multiple apostles of Christ, not just Paul. And it also is reflective inside of the church structure of Jesus Christ. So, I mean, in this particular case, like there's a lot of nuance going into this as to why this is the case and why you don't want women leading churches. Look at how they act now. They have their fucking crystals, and their witchcraft in the United States is very much alive, man. It's very much alive. It's probably larger than it's ever been since the big kind of occult uprisings in the late 1800s between the Protestants starting all these various occults and side occults. I can't tell you how many women I talk to who practice some form of witchcraft. They practice crystals. They practice, all this shit. We talk to them on TikTok all the time, constantly. Okay. Constantly we talk to them. And so the thing is like inside of that mode, you see the kind of spiritual corruption. It goes all the way back to the idea of Eve. The fact that you can become spiritually corrupted and move that to the head, which is the man. That's why you're not to have dominion or authority in spiritual matters over the man. And we saw that play out in Ephesus. That was the whole point with the cult of Artemis. We saw that play out in real time. That's why from a Christian worldview, this is so important, and why I hate the fucking sewing circle Christians. I know that I'm not supposed to hate. I know that, but nothing, like no progressive on planet Earth makes me as angry as a sewing circle Christian. They don't know any of this shit. They have no idea that this is even the case. They just think that Paul was a big meanie head, and so was Timothy, and that they didn't understand what was going on. They knew exactly what the fuck was going on. They knew exactly what was happening. These were not stupid people. Paul especially was not a stupid person at all. He wasn't a great public speaker, but he wasn't a stupid man by anybody's metric. Very smart, educated guy. He knew a lot about the world because he had traveled in it for a long time. He had been shipwrecked. He'd had horrible things happen to him. He was routinely beaten horribly. He had a real rough time of it, a real rough go. And he saw that there was a poison element in the idea of spiritualism, which usually came from the confounded nature of women being so easily led into these occult groups. That's why Christianity, from the traditional role of the church, says that men have to be the head. And that's very important. The cult of Sibyl was really messed up too. Yes, it was. Cybele, I think, or Cybele, or I don't know. But yeah, he knew, man. Why do women gravitate towards these real weird rituals and practices? Because women practice power differently than men. They practice it very differently than men. Men practice a strong power, right? Or what would be considered like force, right? Would be the power dynamic that men can always allude to that women cannot. Women can't appeal to force itself. And it's very difficult for them to collectivize force on their behalf as well, unless it's through machinations and manipulation. The whole idea of why women are so easily corrupted by spiritualism is because it makes them feel very powerful. It makes them feel like they have a lot of control and dominion over their environment and the people around them. That's why magic is so appealing to them. I put this out in the ethos. I remember it was Isabella De Luca. She was viciously attacking me siding with an abortionist, right? Who told my wife she should kill her kids. That's what this abortionist said to my wife, because then she'd be seen as less promiscuous. Horrible fucking woman to say something like that, right? And I knew where that was going. But I remember DeLuca, right? She said, praise God that, people are attacking the Wilsons so viciously. That's basically what her message was. Now, the idea there is what, right? That you ask God to come in and do your dirty work for you, and he did. That's where the idea of power dynamics comes into play in spiritualism for women. Makes them feel very powerful to put these messages out to the universe or whatever, and then bad things happen to somebody. And because bad things happen to everybody, it's the same thing you'll find with numerology and their predictions and all sorts of witchcraft positions, which is they wish harm on you. And then at some point, like every human, something bad happens to you. And then they're able to take responsibility for that. Look, I caused this. I did this to you. That was due to my magical powers that happened. And it's a feeling of control and a feeling of power. And that is why ultimately it comes down to the idea of pride. And that's why women, I think, are so easily spiritually corrupted. So I know that we went off on kind of a deviation there, right? But this is just what I've seen experientially. But the data, which shows the amount of witchcraft in the United States, is fucking staggering. At least if you would utilize my definition of witchcraft, which would include sorcery, soothsaying, astrology, tarot cards, I consider all of that to be witchcraft. All of it. 100% all of that is witchcraft.
Do you take every word of the Bible as sacrosanct?
Well, yeah, it's inspired scripture.
That's all of it. Is
this now
all of it is sacrosanct?
A theological debate. Well, it is Catholic doctrine that women should not lead and teach. I mean, you're not interacting with what I'm saying. Why can't women be priests?
They should be.
Huh? I thought he was Catholic. Andrew, I'm confused.
I need a drink. Now I'm becoming morally outraged.
Should we cue up Smoky Man Bad or what?
This is
That's true. And I'm also from Chicago, like the Pope. But look, right. I mean, why can't women be priests?
They should be.
The dogmatic distinction here should be noted. There is a case that can be made from the Catholic side that they could go after Nick on the idea of ethnocentrism, right? While I think that he would be able to perhaps successfully argue that position from his end, I can at least understand going after him on that position from the Catholic apologetic side. What Morgan just said is indefensible from a Catholic dogmatic principled perspective. Women are not allowed in the Roman Catholic Church or in the Orthodox Church to be priests, period, nor deacons. Now, I understand many people have pointed to me, no, the Catholic Church is allowing women here. And I look into those stories and 90% of the time they're bullshit. Let's be real, right? The Catholic Church's official position still to this day, as far as I'm aware, is that women are not allowed to be priests inside of the church, inside of the Roman Catholic Church. While I may have disputes with Roman Catholicism, the last thing I like to or want to do is attack positions from the position of a straw man, right? The very idea. Now, I remember I was talking with John Fugelsang about this during our debate about why we had deaconesses in the early church and what that meant. And it was largely due to baptisms. They weren't allowed to have any dominion over men still. They were deaconesses only so that they could baptize naked women because baptism was done in the nude. And so obviously that was inappropriate for men to be putting their hands all over the naked body of somebody's wife. It would have very much offended the pagan sensibilities, the delicate sensibilities of most men, which I understand. So they were able to have deaconesses to perform that role without giving them any authority or dominion in the church proper, which I understand the nuance of that position as well. If for every mustard burger you ate, there was one less Sewing Circle Christian, how many mustard burgers would you eat? I'd eat all the mustard burgers, bro. Every one of them. Every one of them. So yeah, anyway. So this is why you really have to understand the kind of dogmatic distinctions. And I'm still a Padawan learner myself, right? But I've taken to really trying to study as much in the way of theological positioning as I possibly can, because it comes up all the time and often. And I found out real quick that I'm much better equipped to deal with many of these criticisms than most people, just because I know what actually happened. It's helpful. Piers said, do you consider everything in the Bible to be sacrosanct? Well, the Roman Catholic dogmatic perspective is very similar to the Orthodox on this. Yes, it's true. Yes, it's allegorically true and actually true, right? And the messaging is true. All of that is true. Now, there could be distinctions in how we view like the Pope and things like this. And there's other distinctions when it comes to other forms of dogma, like the Filioque, for instance. But that's neither here nor there. Here, Fuentes is correct. The dogmatic teachings, as far as I'm aware of Roman Catholicism, is that women are not to be priests, period.
Okay, well, you're not Catholic. That's not a Catholic position.
I am a Catholic. Many things I disagree with the Catholic Church.
Okay. Well, that kind of is contrary, because the whole basis of being Catholic is accepting. It's accepting the authority of the pontiff.
You can be a member of a religion and disagree with parts of that religion. Perfectly reasonable.
You could be, well, yeah. I mean, you could say
unless you're an
that, but it wouldn't
extremist.
be true.
If you're an extremist, you can't.
Okay.
Obviously, you never deviate.
That's just not rigorous.
You never
That's just
deviate
sloppy.
if you're an extremist. But even the Constitution,
That's just sloppy.
even the Constitution's been amended. Was it 27 times? People talk about this sacrosanct document. It's been amended 27 times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my, this is not rigorous intellectually. This is very,
just a statement of fact.
Theology. Okay. But it's fine. Where were we? We're talking about Trump, and somehow we got into
Trump.
You're white knighting for women's rights.
On Trump, well, I think women should have the same rights as you and I. You don't. That's fine.